Hello friends, it's Chari. Today I have a punny and masculine birthday card to share with you. For this card, I'm using the new Workshop Backdrop Landscape and the Simple Stripes Portrait Backdrop. I'm also going to be using the new Mice Tools stamp set, as well as the new Build-a-Toolbox die set. And I'm also going to be using the Henry's Build-a-Sentiment tools and some other Henry's Build-a-Sentiment sets for a birthday sentiment. First, I'm going to start by cutting my Simple Stripes portrait backdrop out of speckled eggshell cardstock. So I am just going to line this up, run this through. This is going to give me a subtle kind of workshop vibe with some slats of wood on the wall behind my pegboard. So I'm keeping my stripes in order. I've just popped them off of my cutting plate. I'm going to keep them in this little tray. And then I'm going to create a pegboard. So I'm not using the frame from the backdrop die, I'm just using the pegboard. And I'm going to cut a piece of cardstock that's a little bit bigger. So I'm just measuring here. And I'm going to cut this cardstock, which is the new mist colored cardstock. And I want to cut it so that the holes are all inside there and I have a nice border around them. So I'm cutting it at 2.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall. Then I'll just take that die that just cuts the holes. I'm going to center it in this rectangle. I'll hold it in place with a little bit of removable tape and run that through my die cut machine, and then I'm going to have a fun pegboard to go on my background. Now, a fun little trick to make sure all the holes pop out is I like to flip it over to the back and run one of these little sanding blocks across it, and it really helps those holes just pop out super easy. Now I thought it would be fun to add some little mini brads in the corners. I only need them in the top corners and the bottom left corner because my bottom right corner is going to be covered up by my toolbox. Now I'm taking my card base and I'm just adding adhesive all over the card base, and I'm going to line up my stripes. So I'm creating that kind of slat wall behind my pegboard. I just think this adds some fun texture to the background without being too busy and distracting from the other elements of the card. You can see how that is going to look. Now I'm moving on to my toolbox. Now I use the light brown wood grain cardstock to cut my toolbox from. So I have it flipped over to the back right now so I can add my little panels to fill in the holes, which I cut this from Storm Cloud cardstock. But when I flip it over to the front, you're going to see it has a fun wood grain texture. I also need to put together my hammer. Now I did not cut out all the tools for this card. I'm only using the hammer, which I cut from narwhal cardstock, and the handle from raspberry. I have the wrench, which is also cut from narwhal, and I have a ruler cut from sunflower cardstock. So I'm just putting together my hammer with the handle, and I'll just set these pieces aside. Now I also am stamping that little mouse from Mice Tools and his little saw. Then I pulled out a speech bubble from all the speech bubbles for his little sentiment. I'm stamping these in jet black ink so that I can color them with my alcohol markers. I'm also stamping the sentiment that says ready to party because I'm making a birthday card, and that sentiment is also from the All the Speech Bubbles stamp set. Now to color my little mouse here, I'm using warm grays for him. I'm starting out with the darker areas using a W5, and then I will blend it out with a W3. Next up, I need to add a little pink to his nose and the inside of his ear. And then for his overalls, he of course needs some blue jean overalls, I think, since he is Mr. Fix-It here. So I'm using a B23 for the darker shade and a B21 for the lighter shade. And I colored his pocket dark so it stands out really nicely. Then, of course, we have his little saw because I did not want him to be empty-handed, but I think it would be cute to put any tool in his hand. Also, it would be really cute to put a cupcake or something party-related in his hand as well. So I'm using a cool gray for the saw and some yellow shades for the handle. And then just a little purple hint on that speech bubble, and I will cut these out with the coordinating dies. Once I had these cut out, I realized it would be really fun to add a cute little party hat to him. So all the party hats has these cute little hats that fit him perfectly. So I'm just coloring it in various bright party colors. So I have a red, a yellow, and a blue. So I stuck to the primary colors for this little hat. And then I'll use the coordinating die to cut out that little party hat so he is ready to party. Now I decided I wanted a different color to fill in the holes of my pegboard, so I'm taking a piece of narwhal cardstock and I cut it down slightly smaller. So I'm going to take the brads out that I put in earlier. I'm going to glue this to the back of my panel. That way this gray will show through the holes. And then I need to put my brads back in. So to do this, I have this thick piece of foam that I keep on my desk to poke holes into things like this. I'm using my pokey tool just to create a hole in those corners where I had the brads before, and now I can just add them right back in. I just think this adds a really fun touch to this card. So now I'm ready to put my pegboard on my card and start to assemble things. And I'm using some foam tape so that it can be popped up off of that background and have some fun dimension. And I'm putting it all the way to the left side of my card. Now I need to fill my little toolbox here with my tools. So I have the hammer. I'm going to tuck that in over here on the right side. Then I want to add my cute little mouse, so I am going to go ahead and put his little party hat on him with a little dot of glue and add the little saw to his hand. Then I can add some glue on the handle and on his feet, and I'm just going to tuck him in like he is popping out of the toolbox as well, and I just think this is really cute and fun. Now to add my toolbox to my card, I'm putting foam but only on the right side, so behind the hammer, so that this is the side that hangs off of the pegboard. And then I use tape runner on the side that touches the pegboard. So that is nice and flat on the pegboard, and then we have some dimension on the right side. Then I will add my ruler. I think it's fun to add this kind of leaning up against the toolbox. I think that's a really fun look. And then, of course, we have our wrench that's going to go down here at the bottom. Because we always have tools laying around. They're not always in the toolbox. Now, when I got this on there, I felt like it needed a little bit extra contrast to pop on that box. So I grabbed a gray marker and I'm just adding a little bit of shading to the gray die cut pieces. So I used a W5 and then a W3 to kind of blend it out, and as it dries, it will soften a little bit. Then of course I have this little speech bubble that says ready to party, and I'm popping that up on some foam squares. Now for the sentiment, I wanted to combine Henry's Build-A-Sentiment birthday and tools to spell out wishing you a totally amazing birthday. But then I thought it would be fun to have some different size letters. So what I did was I grabbed Henry's Junior's ABCs, spelled out the word totally, and I'm going to stamp that in black ink on some mermaid cardstock. So I did not end up using the actual stamp set of Henry's Build-A-Sentiment tools, but I was inspired by the words in that set to spell this out using some larger letters. And since these are the same style, they're going to look great together. One's just going to be bigger than the others. Now there wasn't a dash in this set, so I'm just going to draw that in with a black pen. And then I will stamp the rest of my sentiment. So I'm creating 3 little banners here. So the one on top is going to say wishing you a. Then I'll stamp one at the bottom of this little scrap of paper that says amazing birthday. And then I will just take my paper trimmer and my scissors and trim these down. So we have 3 little sentiments that we can stack on this card. Once I have these kind of basically cut out, I will trim off the ends so it's close to my words. And sometimes I do trim it a little bit more if the spacing on the top and the bottom don't feel even. So I'm making some little word fetty pieces. I will also trim this one down a little bit because I felt like there was more space at the top than at the bottom. So I want to lay these on here and get my spacing right. I'm going to start with that large sentiment in the center and then kind of build off that up and down. I am going to pop this up off of the pegboard. So to do that, I need to add 2 squares over here on the right, so it's double popped, and then 1 square on the left in the center. Then I can take this and flip it over, and like I said, you can use those little holes in the pegboard to make sure this is nice and straight. Then I can take the other 2 sentiments and I need to put a foam square on that right side because remember my pegboard is popped up, but I want these flush with the pegboard, so I will add liquid glue on the left side and glue these right down, above and below my big sentiment. So these are going to be flush with the pegboard while that center part of the sentiment is popped up off the pegboard. Now I'm not quite done. I did cut the little screw heads and the nuts in this set out of some narwhal cardstock, and I'm just using these as my embellishments. So I'm adding a couple over here on the pegboard and I'm lining them up so the centers are on one of those holes. Then I'll take the other 2 that I cut and I will add those up here in the top right corner, just like I would add sequins on a different card that I wanted to be sparkly. And by the way, I am not adding any glitter to this card. I wanted it to have that masculine feel, and for today I thought I would leave the glitter off. So here is my finished punny and masculine birthday card. I think it turned out super cute. I would be happy to give this to my dad for his birthday. So I hope this has inspired you to use those mice tools and make a totally amazing birthday card. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye!